My sister was the golden child, and they humiliated me my whole life. But when I exposed her affair, they kicked me out. Now she stole everything from them, and they're begging for my help. I'm 29 years old. I work in it. And honestly, I need to get this story out because what happened with my family basically destroyed me for years. And only now, like 3 years after moving to another state, am I starting to process everything. The thing is, I was always the forgotten child, you know, the one who was never enough for my parents. While my sister Rebecca, 5 years older than me, was literally perfect in their eyes. And when I say perfect, I'm not exaggerating one bit. For as long as I can remember, Rebecca was the star of the family. She got good grades. Obviously, my parents went crazy with happiness, bought cakes, invited the grandparents, made a whole celebration out of it. I got the same grades or even better sometimes, and it was like, "Oh, that's nice, David. Now go do your homework." Literally, that different was the treatment. Rebecca wanted piano lessons, and my parents sold my dad's old car to buy her a real piano, not a cheap keyboard, an actual piano. I asked for a computer to learn programming when I was like 14 because I was really interested in it, and they told me it was too expensive, that I should just use the library computer instead. You get what I'm saying? Everything was like that. Absolutely everything. The worst part is that Rebecca knew perfectly well the power she had over my parents, and she used it. If I complained about something she did, like eating my food or going into my room without permission, she'd cry and say I was being mean to her, and guess who ended up punished? Yeah, me. Always me. My parents never, and I mean never, took my side on anything. I could be completely right. I could have evidence. It didn't matter. Rebecca was their princess, and I was basically the child they had by accident or something. At least that's how I felt. I grew up with this. I mean, I got used to it in some sick way of being invisible in my own family. I stopped expecting my parents to go to my school events because I knew that if Rebecca had something the same day, they'd go with her. I stopped sharing my achievements because I knew they were going to minimize them or compare them to something Rebecca had done better. Basically, I learned to be self-sufficient from a very young age, which I guess isn't completely bad, but it shouldn't be like that either. Right? A kid shouldn't feel like they have to earn their parents' love while their sibling gets it for free and unlimited. When Rebecca met Jacob, I was like 19. She was 24. Jacob was, and still is, an amazing guy. Mature, hardworking, respectful, the kind of person who listens when you talk and actually cares. Honestly, I liked him better than my own sister, which is sad but true. They got married like a year after dating, and obviously it was the wedding of the century according to my parents. They spent a fortune they didn't have, went into debt, but for Rebecca, everything was worth it. I couldn't even invite my girlfriend at the time to the wedding because, according to my parents, there wasn't space, but Rebecca's random friends she barely knew could go no problem. At that time, I was already in college, working part-time and paying for my own studies because my parents said they couldn't help me financially. Meanwhile, they had just financed a $30,000 wedding for Rebecca. The irony wasn't lost on me, trust me. But anyway, I kept going, focused on finishing my degree and building my own life away from all that toxic dynamic. I met Rachel in my last year of college. She was studying nursing and was, I don't know, different from everyone I had met. She listened to me, validated me, made me feel like I mattered. When I told her about my family, she was like shocked, couldn't believe that parents would treat their children so differently. And that made me realize it wasn't normal, that I wasn't exaggerating, that my family really was wrong. Rachel became my support, my refuge, and honestly, I don't know what I would have done without her in everything that came next. Everything exploded like 4 years ago, when I was 25 and Rebecca was 30. Turns out Rebecca had met a guy at her work. I met him at a couple of family gatherings because Rebecca started bringing him around often, said he was her best friend from work, that Jacob had no problem with her having male friends because they trusted each other. And look, Jacob really did trust her. The poor guy had no idea what was happening. The thing is that one day I went to Rebecca and Jacob's house to help them with something on their computer because I worked in it, and they always asked me for help with those things. Rebecca wasn't there. She had gone out with Noah supposedly for coffee for a work project. Jacob was calm, making dinner, being the normal trusting guy he was. While I was fixing the computer, I got a notification that it had synced with her iPad that was nearby, and I saw messages from Rebecca. I wasn't going to read them. It wasn't my intention to invade her privacy, but the message preview said something like, "Can't wait to be alone with you again," with heart and fire emojis. I froze. My stomach turned. I opened the iPad. I know. I invaded her privacy, but something told me I had to see. And what I saw was worse than I imagined. Months of messages between Rebecca and Noah. Explicit messages, plans to meet secretly, photos that definitely weren't appropriate for work best friends. They met at hotels, at Noah's house when Jacob was working, even once at my parents' house when they went on a trip. It was all so calculated, so brazen. I took pictures of everything with my phone. I don't know why. An instinct told me I was going to need evidence. And I was right. Boy, was I going to need it. I finished fixing the computer. Didn't say anything to Jacob that day because I didn't know how. I needed to process everything first. I went home and told Rachel. She was also shocked and told me I had to tell Jacob that he deserved to know the truth. But before I could decide what to do, something happened that changed everything. My parents organized a family barbecue, one of those they did often in the summer. Rebecca brought Noah, of course, because, according to her, he was practically part of the family already. Jacob was there, being nice to everyone, like always. Rachel also came with me, and Noah started making weird comments to her, like flirty but in a disgusting way. He told her she looked really good in that dress, whether I treated her well, whether she was happy with me, or if she wanted to meet someone more interesting. Rachel felt super uncomfortable, she told me, and I was about to explode. I confronted him, told him to stop talking to my girlfriend like that, and he laughed in a mocking way and said he was just being friendly, that I shouldn't get jealous. Rebecca immediately came to his defense, told me I was overreacting, that Noah was like that with everyone, that it was part of his friendly personality. My parents also said I was being dramatic, that Noah was a good guy, and not to cause problems. Like, seriously? This guy had just verbally harassed my girlfriend, and I was the problem. And that's when something broke in me. I was fed up, literally fed up with everything. Fed up with Rebecca always coming out on top. Fed up with my parents defending her no matter what. Fed up with being treated like garbage in my own family. So I did it. I took out my phone, looked for the pictures I had taken of Rebecca and Noah's messages, and I showed them. First, I showed them to Jacob, who was a few meters away, and his face, his face completely fell apart. He went pale. His hands were shaking as he looked at the photos one after another. Rebecca realized what was happening and ran toward us, screaming, "What was I doing? That I was a liar, that I had edited the photos." But there were too many details, dates, complete conversations. Jacob looked at her and asked if it was true, with a broken voice, and she kept denying and denying until I showed him a photo that was obviously her, like there was no way to deny it. And there her story changed to, "I can explain, it's not what it seems." Noah tried to leave, literally tried to escape from the barbecue, but I exposed him in front of everyone too. I showed my parents the messages, showed them the photos, showed them everything. I genuinely thought, that for once they would see who Rebecca really was, that for once they would be on my side because I had all the evidence in the world that she was destroying her marriage, cheating on a guy who didn't deserve that, being a horrible person. But I was wrong. Completely. My parents got furious. But at me. They yelled at me. How dare I humiliate my sister like that? How dare I destroy her marriage? That I was a terrible and vindictive brother. Rebecca was crying. Jacob was in shock. Noah had already left, and I was standing there, thinking this can't be real. Rachel grabbed my arm and told me we should leave. Jacob left the house he shared with Rebecca, filed for divorce. And guess whose fault it was, according to my family? Mine. I had destroyed the marriage by exposing the affair. Not Rebecca for having the affair. The logic was completely backwards. My parents called me every day demanding that I apologize to Rebecca, that I fix things somehow, that Jacob was overreacting, and that marriages get over these things if the family helps. They gave me an ultimatum. I apologized to Rebecca and to them for humiliating them in front of Noah and the family, or they considered me out of the family. And I, after 25 years of being the disposable child, told them to shove their ultimatum where it would fit. Those weren't my exact words. They were a bit ruder, actually. But basically, I told them that if they wanted me out for doing the right thing, that perfect. I was already used to not being part of their family anyway. Rachel and I decided to move. I got a job in it in another state. She transferred her nursing credits, and we left. We left everything behind. My parents, Rebecca, all that toxicity. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time, but we had to do it. I couldn't stay in a city where my own family treated me like a villain for exposing the truth. For 3 years, I didn't hear anything from them. My parents didn't contact me once. Rebecca didn't either. It was like I had died to them. And honestly, after the initial pain, it was okay. Rachel and I built an incredible life together. I proposed to her a year after we moved. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony with friends, no family on my side, and it was perfect. My life was better without them. I had to admit it. But then, like 6 months ago, something completely surreal happened. Rachel and I were coming back from a weekend trip. We stopped at a McDonald's drive-thru because we were hungry, and when I got to the window to pick up the food, the person who served me was Rebecca. Literally, Rebecca, my sister, working at McDonald's like 1,000 miles from where we grew up, in the same state I had moved to. We recognized each other immediately. Her face showed shock, embarrassment, something. She gave me the food with shaking hands and told me in a low voice, "Please don't leave, I need to talk to you." Rachel looked at me like, "What do we do?" And I don't know why, told Rebecca to meet us at the cafe across from McDonald's when she finished her shift. We waited like an hour. Rachel asked me if I was sure I wanted to do this, and honestly I wasn't. But something in me needed to know what had happened to Rebecca to end up like this. When she arrived at the cafe, she looked destroyed. Thinner, with dark circles, her clothes were old and worn, nothing like the perfect and put-together Rebecca I always knew. She sat down and started talking. She told me that after the divorce with Jacob, she stayed with Noah, that my parents supported her at first, that she lived with them for a while things calmed down. But Noah was, according to her words, toxic and manipulative, that he controlled all her money, that he isolated her from friends, that when she wanted to leave him, he threatened her. She told me that eventually Noah convinced her to move, to start over somewhere else, and they ended up here in this state, supposedly by coincidence, the same one where I lived, although I doubt it was a coincidence. She told me that the relationship with Noah was a disaster, that he was emotionally and sometimes physically abusive, that she couldn't leave him because she had no money and nowhere to go, that she worked at McDonald's because it was the only thing she could get without decent references, that Noah took all her paycheck, that she was trapped. Part of me felt pity. Honestly, as much as Rebecca had made me suffer my whole life, seeing her like this was hard. But another part of me, a big part, thought, what did you expect to happen? Did you think cheating on your husband with a guy who harassed other women was going to end well? I asked her about our parents, why she didn't go back to them if things were so bad. And that's when she told me something that left me frozen. Rebecca had done something unforgivable to our parents. Turns out like 2 years ago, when she was still living with them after the divorce, Noah and she convinced them to sign some papers, supposedly to help them with their finances or something like that. But what they really did was get my parents to sign the house over to Rebecca's name. And then, Rebecca and Noah sold the house, kept the money, and left. They left my parents with nothing. I couldn't believe it. I asked her how she could do that. That they were our parents. As terrible as they were to me, how could she literally steal their house? And she started with excuses, that Noah manipulated her, that she didn't really understand what she was signing, that afterwards it was too late to fix it. But I knew Rebecca was smart, that she knew exactly what she was doing. She had used our parents' blind trust to steal everything from them. I asked her where our parents were now, and she told me that the last time she knew, they lived in a horrible apartment on the other side of the city where we grew up, surviving on Dad's pension, which was basically nothing. That they didn't talk to her. That they had closed the door on her when she tried to come back asking for help. Look, I was angry at my parents. Very angry for years of mistreatment and favoritism, but this was another level. Nobody deserved to have that done to them, especially two elderly people who had worked their whole lives to have that house. Rebecca asked me for help, told me she needed money to escape from Noah, to please help her because I was her brother, and I told her, no. I told her that I had spent my entire life being invisible to her and to my parents, that I had exposed her affair because it was the right thing and they had treated me like garbage for it, that she had moved and completely cut contact with me, and that now that she was in trouble because of her own decisions, she appeared expecting me to rescue her. I gave her the number of a women's shelter for abuse situations, gave her information about social services, but I told her clearly that I wasn't going to give her money or let her stay with Rachel and me. She got angry, told me I was a terrible brother, that I had always been resentful and jealous of her. That's why I ruined her life by exposing the affair. And something in me broke again. I told her that she had ruined her own life with her decisions, that I had only told the truth, and that what she did to our parents was unforgivable, that she should never contact me again, that we weren't family, and I left the cafe with Rachel. But the story didn't end there, because I couldn't leave my parents in that situation without at least knowing how they were. I did some research, found their new address, and wrote them a letter. A letter where I explained that I had found out what Rebecca had done to them, that although our relationship was broken, I wanted to know if they were okay, if they needed anything basic. They responded like 2 weeks later. My mom called me, crying, saying they had to talk to me. I agreed to see them at a neutral place, a cafe near where they lived. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize them. They looked so old, so tired, so broken. They lived in a one-bedroom apartment, in a building that honestly looked about to fall down, surviving on $1,200 a month from pension. My dad asked me for forgiveness. He literally cried and asked me for forgiveness for how they had treated me my whole life, for having favored Rebecca so much, for having given me that ultimatum instead of seeing the truth. My mom also apologized, said they were terrible parents to me, that Rebecca had manipulated them for years, but that wasn't an excuse for how they treated me. They told me that after selling the house, Rebecca and Noah disappeared, that they tried to contact Rebecca 1,000 times, that she blocked them, that they couldn't afford a lawyer to sue her because they had no money, that they had lived almost 2 years in that horrible apartment, ashamed to contact me after everything that happened. I'm not going to lie, part of me felt satisfaction that they finally saw who Rebecca really was, that they finally admitted they were wrong. But another part, a part I didn't want to admit, felt sadness for them. Yes, they were terrible parents to me, but nobody deserves to have their own daughter steal everything from them. I asked them what they expected from me, if they wanted money, if they wanted me to save them, and my dad said, no, that they just wanted me to know they were sorry, that they understood if I never forgave them, but that they needed me to know they had been wrong, that I was right about Rebecca from the beginning, that they should have listened to you. Rachel and I talked about it a lot after that meeting. She told me the decision was mine, that she would support me in whatever I decided to do, and I decided to help them, but with very clear boundaries. I paid them 3 months' rent in a better apartment. Not luxurious, but safe and decent. I bought them some basic furniture, but I made it clear to them that our relationship would never go back to being like a normal parent-child relationship, that there was too much accumulated damage for that. Now we talk maybe once a month. They update me about their lives. I tell them superficially about mine. It's a cordial, distant, but honest relationship. I don't lie to them saying I've completely forgiven them, because that would be false. But I don't hate them either. They're simply two elderly people who made many mistakes and are now living with the consequences. Rebecca, as I learned, finally left Noah a few months ago. She's living in a shelter, still working at McDonald's, trying to rebuild her life. She contacted me once more on Facebook asking for help, saying she had changed, that she understood all the damage she caused. I responded with a single word: no. And I blocked her from all social media, from my phone, from everything. I don't have space in my life for her. Not after everything. Am I cruel for not helping her? I don't know. Maybe. But after a lifetime of being the forgotten child, after doing the right thing and being punished for it, after seeing how she destroyed our parents out of pure greed, I think I have the right to protect my peace of mind. Rachel says, I did the right thing, that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's emotional survival. Last week, my parents asked me if I could ever forgive Rebecca, if, as a family, we could heal together. I told them honestly that no, that Rebecca crossed too many lines, that some things can't be forgiven, or at least I can't forgive them. They were quiet, but I think they understood. My life now is good, really good. Rachel and I are considering having kids soon. I have a job I love. We live in a nice house that we pay for ourselves. And I guess that's enough, right? I don't need the validation from my parents that I never had. I don't need a relationship with Rebecca that was always toxic. I have my own family now, one I built myself, one that values me and truly loves me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never exposed Rebecca's affair, if I had continued being the quiet and submissive child I always was. I'd probably still be in that city, being ignored, watching Rebecca continue being the favorite while she destroyed lives around her. And honestly, even though everything that happened afterwards was painful, I don't regret it. I did the right thing. And although it cost me my family, I gained my freedom and my peace. And that, at the end of the day, is worth more than any approval my parents could give me.